Hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here today. This is Brian, the speaker for the dead. Going to be talking about the Silmarillion. And I'm going to start with an intro here that wasn't ready 10 seconds ago when I needed it to be, and now it is. So, so we're going to do this completely ass backwards because that's the kind of day I'm having. So, anyway, let's kick this off with a proper intro. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, or as the world knows him now, J.R.R. Tolkien, is responsible for creating some of the most amazing works of fiction ever written, and is largely responsible for the popularity of such fictional works even today. This was a man of vision. His books, The Hobbit, then The Lord of the Rings, are some of the most well-read and most well-liked fantasy fiction works of all time. This amazing man, over the period of his entire life, was continually writing, creating, and building the world that he had created of Middle-earth. Why is this important, you might ask? Who really cares? Everybody should care. Because of J.R.R. Tolkien, much of the fantasy world that we know and love today was created. His vision of elves, dwarves, wizards, goblins, dragons, and yes, hobbits, largely influenced the world of science fiction and fantasy even up to and including today. This man was a visionary who built these stories over the period of his entire life, most of which did not become put into book form until years and years later. The Silmarillion, which we will be discussing today, is one of those such books. It was actually compiled by his son Christopher as a grouping of the stories that his father had wrote over the entire course of his life. Now, as I read this, I became enamored and absolutely enthralled with what this man had accomplished. He had, in a sense, over the course of his life, written the Bible of Middle-earth. He had created lands, created people, created characters, created stories and visions that would enthrall readers for the rest of their lives, that would give them a love of fantasy, of things that they could only see in their mind's eye but never touch. I will always and forever be grateful to this man for his influence in my life, as The Hobbit, printed in 1937, was the first full book that I ever read as a kid, and inspired me to continue on reading and creating. I remember watching the Rankin and Bass cartoon of The Hobbit. It expanded my imagination and lifted my mind to imagine things that I had never believed possible before. So I hope you enjoy this chance for us to sit back and talk today about one of the greatest authors, writers, and creators of his day and any day, as we discuss his work, The Silmarillion. All right, there we go. So, sorry, a little bit of a rough start to the show. My intro, I thought it was done, but it hadn't quite downloaded or uploaded into StreamYard yet. And so I went live and I told Loki, who's my guest, I'm like, hey, we're going live. And I looked down and it's still doing this circle thing. So I'm like, damn it. So anyway, let's before any further ado, we're going to bring in the man himself, the god of mischief from in the morning, Stone Loki. So
this
Loki, how are you doing?
This guy, ladies and gentlemen, this guy right here is telling me before the show starts, well, I made this intro and it's probably not even really good and it's not going to be any good and people probably aren't even going to like it. And I'm watching this and I'm like, Oh my God, I'm almost in tears with this intro. It's so powerful and moving. And this guy's like, "Oh, it's probably not going to be any good. And you probably won't even like it. And the chat probably won't even like it. And it's not any good." My God, this guy.
Well, now I'm blushing. I'm gonna have to go off camera, but no,
Wonderful
thank you.
intro. Wonderful intro, Brian. Wonderful.
I threw that together, trying to get it all together, and I mean, it was compiling right down to the last second, and I'm like, this isn't going to happen. I'm not going to get this done anyway. So, but yeah, I love Tolkien. I just any tribute I can do to him is worth it in my book.
I'm right there with you, man. The Hobbit was the first book that I ever read to like completion on my own. You know, that I didn't have someone reading when I was little or something.
Yeah.
You know that, and I was told not to. The librarian was like, "You don't want that book." I'm like, "Yeah, I do. I've seen the cartoon.
Yeah,
I want the book." And she's like, "You're not going to understand it." I'm like, "I want the book." All right.
Like, lady.
Yeah.
No, I had the same exact. I had people telling me it's too advanced. You're never going to make it. I think I was in. God, it was like third grade.
Yeah,
you know, so I wasn't at a super high reading level, but I'm just like, I'd seen the cartoon and I just took my time with it. And I'm sitting there thinking, there is so much crap in here that was not in, I mean, obviously in the cartoon, but I mean, it's such an amazing story.
And I was in the 6th grade when I took the Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King up to the librarian. And I was like, "Is this the same guy that wrote The Hobbit?" And she's like, "Yeah, but you don't want to. Give me the damn books."
You need to be fired, lady. Before we go any further, Purple Valkyrie, welcome. Thank you for being here. Geek Inside, welcome. Thank you for being here today. And I think there's some other people in the chat, but they're not talking. So, but thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. We're just going to have fun talking about this. I had completing the Silmarillion, which I have spent my entire life calling it the Silmarillion. And
really, I always called it the Silmarillion. Like Sal Goodman or something. Sal Silmarillion. Yeah,
I don't know why I did that, but so I did just a quick. I was about halfway through the book, and I did a video on the first half of the book here like 2-3 weeks ago, and my brother got on afterwards, and he's like, "Dude, you're gonna get tore apart by the Tolkienites because you said that wrong." I'm like, "I did," and then about halfway through the book, I finally realized, I'm like, this whole thing is based on the Silmarils. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, really, it took me half the book to realize that's why it was called that. I'm just like, you're stupid. You're kind of a dumb hick if it took you that long to. But yeah, anyway, so we'll talk about that and why those become important and stuff. But yeah, Tolkien is just, I mean, realistically, if you go back, I think almost, or at least it seems to me like most of the fiction and stuff that is written today in this similar vein relies a lot on the basis he created for the elves, the dwarves, the dragons, you know what I mean? At least it seems that way.
Everything he wrote, everything from The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, the Silmarillion, which is like, it's like a nitro injection of information. You're getting all of this information from all of these different ages in this one book, and it's because this was all the stuff he didn't finish. He wrote the Elven language, the entire Elven language. Who does that? Yeah. They just do it. Oh, the elves spoke in Elverillion, and they just leave it at that, right? The Elverillion. Yeah. But no, this guy was like, no, I'm going to pen an entire language that the elves, and I'm going to read. I'm gonna write Dwarvish, and I'm gonna write the Black speech of Morgoth, and he lived in this world. This was not just a book he wrote. These were not just books he wrote. It wasn't just a collection of stories. J.R.R. Tolkien lived in this world. And I honestly believe it was because of the war. He was when he was in that war and he saw all the things he saw. That is the end of Lord of the Rings. When they're crawling to Mount Doom, that is them. That is him and his comrades crawling out of the end of the war. You can see it in all the work he's done. and hello, Adega.
Yeah, thanks for popping in, Adega.
The Doctor of Disaster and Destruction. You can see it in all the work he did, and it's his faith, it's his experiences, it's his friendships. It's so much stuff, and I as great as Christopher was a protector of that, having to take all that information and put it into the Silmarillion, it was I think it was just so much stuff that I wish Tolkien could have finished, because I think we would have had at least more, and it would have been maybe split up some.
Yeah.
Because there are people that were like, I started Silmarillion, and by God, I got about halfway through and I didn't know what the hell I was reading, man. And I hear that, and I'm like, I get it, I do. Because it's just too much information all at once. Well, let's talk about the first age and the second age, and let's talk about everything before the ages, and let's talk about when the Earth was flat, and Valinor used to be connected to everything, and then it like disconnected from the Earth, and Middle Earth became round. What the hell are you talking about? I didn't read that in Silmer. What's it is? And you're like, it's in there. Trust me.
Yeah, it's in there. But it is seriously like reading the Old Testament. You've got to go back. I mean, because they're throwing so many character names, so many place names, and the place names and characters sometimes have multiple names. Like they're named one thing by the elves, and then they're called something else in the like the Silmarillion language or what. I mean, it is so in depth. You're like, holy crap. Like you kind of get blown away by all the I mean, it took about halfway through the book before I started even hearing characters' names that I recognized, like Galadriel, like Elrond, the half elven. And I mean, it's just like, thanks, Chris Persia. Dude, why didn't anybody tell me Speaker of the Dead? It's actually D. Snyder. I'm not sure whether to take that is that a compliment, Chris Persia? I'm gonna take it as a compliment. But yeah, no, this just, I mean, you get into it, and seriously, I'm like, I kept listening for, okay, well, where's Mordor in this? Well, that's just it. The world changes several times.
Yep.
Like things are renamed, and the world itself is like restructured and realtered because of the Ainur.
Yep.
The Ainur have the power to alter the way the earth looks. And if you don't know who the Ainur, so Iluvatar is essentially God in this. He is the creator of everything, and he creates the Ainur. And then and this is something, I don't know if you picked up on this, but I love the part where everything is done in the creation in music. Like it's all done by song.
That's why the elves have such an attachment to the music. When they're, if you notice, like in the Hobbit movies, when the Hobbit and when Bilbo and the dwarves are in Rivendell, and this music, can you stop? Right? That all of that is everything for the elves, because that's creation. Creation was in music. So all that shit you hear whenever elves are around, and whenever you're in Rivendell, whenever you're in the name of the place where Galadriel is,
Lothlorien.
Lothlorien, thank you. All of that music that you hear, all the singing, that's all like everything to the elves, because that's creation. And that's something that they just never explain in the movies, that you don't get in Lord of the Rings, and you don't get in The Hobbit. That's something you have to go back into the Silmarillion and read, and to understand, hey, music is everything to the elves, because that's creation.
Yeah, that's I mean, Iluvatar's song was, he was singing, then he created the Ainur. Then the Ainur began to pick up the song and like increase it and make it better. And then, oh crap, Morgoth's, what's his real name?
Oh shit.
I lost it. It's on the tip. I might have to Google.
Yeah.
It's because he had, like I said, there is several times where they rename characters, because the elves renamed him Morgoth because they hated him so bad. It was kind of like a way of insulting him.
Melkor.
Melkor. Yep. So his
Melkor.
name was Melkor, and I mean he just um and it parallels the creation story in the Bible so
Yes.
well in so many
Yep.
ways. He essentially becomes the devil because he's trying to take God's song and overpower it, to change it to be what he wants it to be instead of what Ilavada wants it to be.
Well,
And I mean,
a lot of that, it's not just him because like they barely scratch the surface in that when Sauron talks about the orcs and the elves, how the
mhm.
orcs used to be elves, Well, that's not the only thing. Do you remember the Mara? Remember how like um oh shit when Gandalf summons his horse, when he summons Shadowfax, and Legolas is like, "That is one of the mares, unless my eyes
Mars, yeah.
deceive me." Right? But okay, imagine that turns into the Balrog. The mares are the Balrogs.
Mhm.
The Balrogs of Morgoth are mares that turned evil,
Yeah,
and
he
that's
he
something.
takes everything and twists it
Yes.
and creates something totally the opposite. I mean, in that way, he is just the same as Satan, the way he is portrayed in the Bible. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he is the devil of this
Yeah.
story. I mean, it is that's how bad this guy was. Yes. So, but yeah, it's amazing. Like, because like you were saying, Sauron's like they were elves once, taken and twisted by the dark powers,
Yep.
and it's just like that's exactly what happened. And all of the like everything evil in the world has all came from Melkor. And he has just made evil copies of everything the Ainur and Ilovada, tried to do.
Yep. And Sauron used to be a good guy. Sauron was
Yeah.
sent to Middle Earth to protect Middle Earth and was turned by Morgoth. He was
Hmm.
turned when he started delving into all that. It turned him and it changed him and it twisted him to the point where he's almost like the son of Morgoth.
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy that, I mean, and if you look at it like as a different way of looking at our lives and stuff like that, it really simplifies that understanding of the Bible. It's just like that's what evil is. Evil is just good turned dark.
Yes.
I mean, it's just the mirror image. But yeah, it is, and it really gets, um, like I said, it just gets more and more in depth as you go into the story. And pretty soon you're just kind of lost in all of these different tales. So was there any part of the similar, I almost did it again, Silmarillion, that stood out to you, like one of your favorite stories?
Celebrimbor.
Mm.
Celebrimbor, learning that, okay, because it's like I didn't remember at first about the rings. And I had to go back and reread because I was like, wait a minute, this isn't right. You watch the three were created for the elves, the wisest and fairest of all beings. And I'm like, wait, no. What am I missing? Something's
Yeah.
wrong. I remember reading, no, he didn't make them. So I went back and I reread. And I'm like, oh, nah, flipping through it. Celebrimbor. You knew he didn't make the rings. Yeah. So Sauron goes to Celebrimbor and is like, I know the secret of ring making. I will help you make these wonderful rings for the elves. 7 were not created for the dwarf lords.
No.
9 were not created for the race of men.
Nope.
3 were created for the elves, but Celebrimbor did that in secret, away from Sauron, because for whatever reason he knew something was off. All those rings were supposed to go to the elves.
Hmm.
So when Sauron put that ring on, he would control the elves. That was the whole point of that. And it enraged him when he found out Celebrimbor had gone off and made 3 rings on his own away from him, because he could not enforce his will over those rings.
It started a huge war
Yep.
to reclaim the rings.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just crazy, all of the aspects of that come into it. And see, I struggled because like that, it's like we were talking before, it's almost like that spread over several different stories. So it's kind of hard to keep the thread of actually what's happening with the rings
Yeah.
And stuff, because it doesn't come into the tale till quite a bit later. I mean, it's in the second age, I think, when that all starts to happen. I think that's because the first age is like the creation and basically the time of the power of the elves. And then the second age is when men start coming in. And then the third age is what we see in Lord of the Rings.
And the Hobbit, yeah.
And the Hobbit. So, I mean, it's just, but I mean, and that's what this supposedly this new Lord of the Rings show that's supposed to be coming out from Amazon is supposed to talk about the second age. And I'm just like, please don't. you're just going to screw that all up. And it's like, which one of all of these stories are you going to take and bastardize? And I'm just like, just don't do that to any of them. Because they really are fantastic, all of them in their own way. I think one of my favorite. Oh, go ahead.
Well, there's a picture in the production. There's a production still of Sauron holding. Was it Glorfindel? I can't remember his name. The guy that was Sauron's or not Sauron, but Elrond's leader. Okay, Elrond used to not be the leader of the elves. There was a guy before him and a guy before him and so on and so forth. But the guy that fought with him, I think I can't remember his name. The guy that fought with him against Sauron.
It was Glorfindel, I think.
Glorfindel. Right. Okay. There is a picture of Sauron holding him by the neck in the movie. And this is something you never see. Sauron grabs him, and as soon as he grabs him, his ring of fire that ends up going to Gandalf later in the story is revealed because he is touching him and he's got the one ring and Glorfindel has the ring of fire. He knows it's there and he literally sets him on fire just by touch and burns him alive. That ring would eventually go to Gandalf. And that's another thing you see later in the movie that is never ever told of you.
It's never explained.
When Gandalf says, I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnott, dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. He is summoning the power of his ring to protect himself from the Balrog's fire sword.
And that's one of the reasons he doesn't even want to touch the one ring.
Yes.
Because he knows what it's capable of. He's been exposed to the rings. And so, I mean, it's something that scares the hell out of him.
He got that ring. Gandalf got that ring as soon as he came to Middle Earth. And the boatman that sent him to Middle Earth gave him that ring. He said, I've held this. It's for you. You'll know what it's for. And he gave him the ring. And that's something that's never explained. It's never talked about. You've got to dig into the history of why Gandalf was there. But he knew, the boatman knew, and I can't remember his name at the moment. But he knew Gandalf's like the secret servant. He is almost like Jesus, and they send him in under the wire as a wizard. So he knows Gandalf's going to be Gandalf the White one day. The boatman knows. He's like, he has got the power within him. That's why he cannot fight Sauron directly, because the gods deemed you can't have two of these, the most powerful things on earth going after each other. Yeah. Gandalf has to use people like a chess piece. It's a chess match. It is a direct chess match now, and where Sauron doesn't care about any of that. Gandalf has rules he has to follow. And one of those rules is he cannot.
But the bad guys never have to follow the rules.
Yeah, bad guys never have to follow the rules.
Yeah, no, it's because they're how many of the I can't remember what they called them, the wizards, what their actual first names were.
There was the two blues, the red, the brown, the white, and the gray. That's how many of them there were. Two blues, a red, a brown, Radagast the brown. The two blues, you never find out their names directly. The red wizard, one of the blue wizards went into where the Mumakil come from, those giant elephants, the elephants. That's what
they go into the south.
Sam calls them. Yeah, he went to the south and never returned. Nobody ever heard from him again. I don't know what happened to the other blue. I don't know what happened to the red, but
the Astari. Thank you.
The Astari.
Thank you, Kamikaze.
Yes. But Gandalf isn't in Astari. That's the thing. He is one of the Valar. He is a Valar. Gandalf is a Valar. He's not an Astari. And it's like they snuck him in there. That was their trump card that nobody knew about. That's why Gandalf can come back. That's why he's allowed to come back as Gandalf the White, because he's the guy they sent under the line that nobody knows about. You're going to be reborn as an Astari, and you're going to go in under the wire, and you won't even know it. You're not even going to know what you are. Nobody's going to know what you are. You're our oh shit backup plan. If shit goes to hell, you're our backup plan.
Yeah, because at this point, like the Ainur aren't coming into Middle Earth anymore. Like
Nope.
they had come in and whooped Morgoth's ass once.
Yep.
And stuff. And now, like where Iluvatar's children are now in the picture, like it's like, oh, we kind of have to hands off. They've got to figure this out for themselves. They've got to defeat him on their own.
That was Tolkien's version of free will. You have free will, mankind. I am not going to interfere anymore. I sent the flood once, and I'm not going to do anything. That's again from the Bible. He took a lot of things from the Bible. Gandalf is essentially like Jesus. He is. He's the one that died and then rose again for 3 days to kick some ass.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and that's the thing. And I haven't seen the Tolkien movie just because I was afraid of what they were going to do with the history. Because I know, from what I understood, they really sucked out the fact that he was a devout Catholic his entire life.
They left the religion out of it
and stuff. Yeah, and I'm just like, well, that plays a huge part. That's like talking about C.S. Lewis without talking that he was a Christian, which is funny because J.R.R. Tolkien actually brought him back to Christianity. C.S. Lewis had kind of fallen away, and then Tolkien, his influence, because they became such good friends later in life, that he actually brought him back to Christianity. Which, I mean, C.S. Lewis, I mean, you can see Christianity woven through everything C.S. Lewis does, you know, very similar to J.R. Tolkien, because they were contemporaries and friends. They sit there and critique each other's work. So, but yeah, that's just some stuff that I was learning earlier today, that, you know, that there's a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes, like you said, and the war, going through the war changed his perspective on a lot of things.
Yep. The Hobbit's journey in Lord of the Rings, Bilbo and Sam's journey, and the journey into Mordor and back that's him going through the war. That is him and his friends going through the war. The Fellowship is him and his friends excited to go on this journey we're going to war. You know, like at the beginning of Starship Troopers, it's war, we're going to war. And everybody's all happy and the bugs tear the shit out of them. And they're all like, you know, screw this. That's kind of what happened with him and his friends. And then the Fellowship broke and he lost people. He lost people he had been friends with and that he had grown up with. And how Bilbo is changed after Lord of the Rings, and he's like, I don't know if I have it in me to go on after this. That is him saying, I want to go off to Middle Earth. Yeah. His journey into Valinor, his journey into the Undying Lands, Bilbo and Frodo's at the end of Lord of the Rings, that is him saying, I'm going to escape into Middle Earth. See you later, everybody. I'm off to Middle Earth. I'm going to create this entire universe. And this is going to be my focus from this point on, is to create this whole universe, because it was almost like how he dealt with his PTSD. Nobody even knew he had PTSD. I'm sure nobody knew what the hell PTSD was.
Wasn't even a thing at the time. Well, they used to call it. They called it something else. Shell shock. They used to call it shell shock back in the day. But yeah, it greatly played a huge influence in his life. And I mean, and I don't know, but yeah, because he had a bunch of college buddies that had created this kind of literary society, and he was one of the only ones to make it back from the war. And then they kind of created another society after he became a professor and stuff, and Shield Shock. I don't know if that's a typo or if you mean
how you doing, Pat
as a Pat S. And we had Martin Orlando pop in here. Thanks for everybody who's popping in a little bit later. If I don't shout you out, just know I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Because I mean, we're talking about something fantastic. I mean, there just is nobody better in my mind as a creator than J.R.R. Tolkien. He is the epitome to me. And like I said, and it's just because I had such an early interaction with him in my youth. The Gollum character from the Rankin Bass cartoon still scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
It's one of the only things I'm still afraid of. It's one of the things I felt like Peter Jackson didn't quite get right. I'm like, because Gollum's supposed to be a freaky character, and
the eyes.
And like in Lord of the Ring, or in the Fellowship of the Ring, he is much more that character where you see him in the cave with the "It came to me, my love," and then he turns and all you see is his eyes. I'm like, holy shit, they got that right. And then later on, I'm like, they kind of didn't.
Thief.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
cartoon, dude.
Seriously, in the dark at night, it will still bother me. I'm like, how is it that still bothers me when I'm 47 years old? But it does. I mean, that's how good what they did was.
The image of him in the cave, in the fellowship, the image of him in the cave, like you said, when his head turns and you see the eyes, and you're like, holy shit, that's straight out of the cartoon.
Yeah.
It's like they captured that moment in the cartoon and just made it real.
Yep. And then when later in the Mines of Moria, where Gandalf's like, it's Gollum, somebody's been following it, and you see his fingers kind of come up on the edge, and I'm just like, holy cow. It gave me the creeps again. I'm just like, this is what great cinema is. This is what great storytelling is capturing something like that just kind of grabs you and becomes part of your life. And Tolkien did that for me. Hail, Fenrir of Fire. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hail, Fire.
So, one of the things that I did not realize, and I found out earlier today, is that the story of Luthien and Beren, which is a really cool story.
Yeah.
They actually go in to try and take back one of the Silmarils and stuff. But Tolkien thought of Luthien as his wife Edith. And in fact, on his tombstone, that's how it reads. It says, Mary Edith Tolkien, Luthien, and John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, Beren. That's actually on their tombstones. He was writing those two characters from the perspective of him and his wife. And I just thought that's so cool that he actually put that personal touch on that story, because it is an amazing love story and what they go through. And I can't remember the name of the dog, but they have this huge wolf that goes with them. And it's just the battle scenes and the fight to get into Angbad is just freaking awesome. So good. One of my favorite. If you read nothing else in that book, go read that story. It is really good. But so was there anything else that stands out to you in the Silmarillion as like, and I'm sitting here racking my brain because there's so many, but it's like trying to remember every name. I mean, Tolkien literally came up with thousands of names for his stories, thousands of names, thousands of character places, and kept track of all of it. So that, I mean, it's all interwoven and stuff, just like we were saying, and not always as good as it should have been because Christopher was the one to do it.
I had a book I got after the motion picture trilogy came out, and it's the arms, armor, and like everything about the buildings, the arms, the armor, all the equipment, everything about Middle Earth. And there's a passage about the White City, about Gondor. And it says that after the Battle of Gondor, Gimli retook the Mines of Moria and got Mithril and lined the city gate with Mithril. And this was, and there's a passage below it that says, as accounted for in the Silmarillion. And I'm like, I didn't remember that. Them talking about Gimli going, Gimli goes in, reclaims the Mines of Moria for the dwarves, gets Mithril, and then lines the city gates of Gondor so that nothing can ever breach them again. And right after that, there's another passage about that wolf, that battering ram they use. And I had no idea that Grom Grom the battering ram is the top of the hammer of Morgoth. That battering ram was the top hammer section of Morgoth's hammer. And I'm like, damn, that guy must have been big.
Yeah.
That guy must have been freaking huge if that's the top of his hammer. And it's like, well, that's what's said, but no one, is absolutely sure that's actually true as accounted for in the Silmarillion. And that was another thing. I was like, was that in this? If it was, man, it just blew right by me that Grom was the top of Morgoth's hammer.
Yeah, and and imagine how long it took him to. I mean, it says long had it been forging, in the smithies of. Well, they say at least in one of the films, long had it been forging in the fires of Mordor, but I think it came, like you said, it was from before then. So I don't know if they had reforged it, like what they did with Enduriel. So they're losing the names of the swords, but and that's something else I love. He even named the swords in this. Yeah. I mean, every great sword has a great name.
So the sword that Gandalf uses, Glamdrick, the bow hammer, that sword belonged to the king of the elves in the First Age. And that city was destroyed by dragonfire. So how that sword eventually got to Gandalf, you have no idea. That sword was lost because was it Gondolin? Is that what they called it? The city of Gondolin?
I think it was it was the city that was, see, like I said, too many names. You're gonna have to read the book.
First Age of the Elves.
But there is the First Age of Elves when they build a city in Valar, and then one of the clans of the elves actually gets despondent because their founder, creator, whatever, was the one who made the Silmarils. And and when they were stolen, they went to Middle Earth basically to avenge themselves, looking for it. And basically, that is the story of the Silmarils. This whole, like, they're basically cursed, this clan of elves, because they vow this vow to get vengeance on Morgoth, and it just literally destroys the elves over time. And turns them against each other, where, like, before there'd never been an elf injure or kill another elf until that vow was made, and then that actually happens, and they're kind of cursed because, like I said, there's so much but yeah, it's the city that you're talking about is the one that was patterned after the one that was in Valinor, or Valinor. I can't think of the name of it, but it's the one that was destroyed by there's a huge Gandalf, or a huge dragon that's basically the sires of Smaug. He's like one of the biggest, baddest. Gosh damn, I wish I could remember his name. He's the one that destroys that city.
Yep. The wyverns that the ring race ride, the Nazgul. Mm-hmm. Those are the children of one of his children. The big dragon you're talking about, he has Smaug, and they have Smaug and a couple other dragons that are under him. One of them is underneath Mordor that Sauron had, and it is breeding with a giant snake. And that's why you have the Nazgul riding these weird wyverns that are kind of like part snake, part dragon. If they hadn't killed Smaug, the idea was to get Smaug to breed with that, and you would have had Nazgul riding fire-breathing dragons. Can you imagine that?
As if they weren't bad enough.
As if they weren't bad enough already, you would have had Nazgul riding fire-breathing dragons.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but this dragon, there's a battle between, I think it's Baron, which is who Tolkien, patterned himself after, Gulrung. Yeah, I think you're right, Purple. I think that, see, you should have been on here today. I tried to get Purple Valkyrie to come on. She's like being modest. I don't remember the book. I can't think of it. Yeah, whatever. We love you, Purple. But no, yeah, it's the battle between him and this dragon after that city's destroyed is, it's kind of it's really a sad tale of what happens to that guy. he's just kind of chased from place to place because of this douchebag dragon. But it is such an amazing story.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I sorry, I totally derailed you what you were talking about with Glamdring there.
Oh no! I was just that we were talking about the names of the swords and the names of the places. That's why that was like all the Glamdring. If you remember, the first thing that like brought me to Glamdring was the cartoon. That cartoon of the Hobbit, because I know that sword is Glamdring, the bowhammer. No, and it's just like boom, cuts him in half, and you're like, yeah, fly damn you, and they run out of the damn caves, and ever since I saw that sword glow in the dark, I was like, holy crap, I got to find out about this sword, Glamdring.
Yeah.
The foe.
See, that's one of the things I missed in the Lord of the Rings films, is because in the books, he has Andúril. Aragorn has Andúril from the time he leaves Rivendell.
They reforge the sword for him right then and there, and he takes it. Yes,
and he takes it and he fights with it at Helm's Deep, and the orcs can see it as he's fighting, or the Orcai can see it flashing in the darkness as they're fighting. And I had that visual in my head the whole time. I'm just like, why they I mean, I'm sure it was to kind of heighten the suspense and stuff like that. But I mean, it's one of those times where I wish they wouldn't have departed from the book. I'm like, it would have made the Helm's Deep that much better. But of course, the elves don't show up at Helm's Deep either.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm like, that was a good addition. I'm like, good job.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, because the elves weren't supposed to be at Helm's Deep. I'm like, no, but that added such, man, when they showed up, that is no Orcorn. I'm like, oh shit, dun 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 dun, and boom, we are here to fight with men once more. I'm like, yes, you fixed it. And that adds so much depth, because those elves could be leaving and going to live eternally, and they're going to lay down their lives to fight with men once more. That was the most heart-wrenching, oh my God, you did something great that Tolkien didn't think of,
Yep.
We're going to
it's one of the few times when Hollywood got it right. It's like, way to go. All right. But yeah, no, it's but yeah, I love that scene.
Would you have wanted, because originally they filmed this, the girl, Elrond's daughter,
Eowyn.
Eowyn was supposed to show up. There is footage of her at Helm's Deep. There is footage. Go into the I've got the 4K, but if you go into the DVDs and the Blu-rays and the cut scenes, there are scenes of her at Helm's Deep. She was originally supposed to show up, and supposedly, because they've got an interview of her talking about it, there was a giant hate campaign. Letter after letter after letter calling her the Dyke Xena and all kinds of nasty shit.
What?
And no one even knew. See, that's the weird thing. That is the weird thing. I honestly believe this is something that the studio did to keep them from having her, because Peter Jackson wanted her in the scene. Peter Jackson wanted her to bring the army. Instead of the Galadriel's husband, or her lieutenant, because it's not her husband. Her lieutenant showing up, it was supposed to be Eowyn showing up with the army of elves from Rivendell, not from Lothlorien. And they switched it. They switched it around, and they brought him in. But it was supposed to be Eowyn, and she was supposed to be injured, and that goes into the third movie and why Aragorn has to go take the sword, and you will fix this because Arwen is dying. Arwen's dying, and you have to fix this. Instead of her just dropping her thing, it was supposed to be a wound from the battle, and she was gonna die. I never heard this story until I watched the deleted scenes. So if I was that into it and watching every Lord of the Rings thing possible, and I didn't know she was going to be in it, how the hell did the rest of the world know and I didn't know? Yeah. So I was always thinking it had to be someone inside the company
that didn't want it to happen.
that didn't want her to be a part of that movie. It wasn't the fans, because I don't see how anybody would have not liked that, to see her and Aragorn fighting side by side. But
Yeah.
she was called a dyke, she was called a lesbian, she was called all these bad things, all these letters, and they ruined her part in that movie. And I'm like, man, I was following every little trickle of information coming out about the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Because like
How did I not know?
In Lord of the Rings, there really is no mention of Aragorn and her's romance per se, other than it's kind of inferred and stuff. But I loved that they put that in there. The scenes with Enya playing in the background and her and him at Rivendell,
Yeah,
and stuff where she hands him the pendant that's around, and I'm just like, that was so awesome. It added that little touch of romance to the story, that, you know, but it wasn't overly heavy, because I hate that when they Steven Spielberg a story where they put too much human interest into it and it bogs the story down. I'm like, dude, you need to stop doing that.
Yeah, like kaiju movies, like Godzilla movies. We don't need the human element. We just want giant monsters.
Yeah, just blow shit up. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. But no, yeah, and yes, Purple. That scene, and then the scene where Theoden rescues them at my brain's fried. I've slept for like an hour in the last 48 hours, so I apologize. My brain is just fried. But where they save Gondor, basically, where he rides with the Rohirrim. Oh my hell. That scene gives me chills every single time.
And the red sun rises. Yeah, you're like, yeah!
Go get him!
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, I mean, it's just... And that's, I mean, if that's what they could do with Amazon money to make the second age, I'd say all for it. But in the world we live in right now, just leave Tolkien alone. You people don't, you don't have the right mindset for doing Tolkien right now. I mean, you'll just ruin it.
$1 billion on the first season. That's what they're doing. $500 million on one season. Yeah. Now, $500 million, and you get to fuck it up.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's money they're going to get back. So, I don't know. I'll hope for the best, but just kind of plan for the worst at this point. But yeah, seriously, if you have not read the Silmarillion, and yes, that's how you pronounce it, because I've been pronouncing it wrong for years. Me and Loki were talking about this before. But yeah, it's just, if you can't read it, I would suggest getting the audiobook. I got it through Audible, and it really is good. It really is good. But like, I'm telling you, you're going to have to listen to it multiple times. I'm going to have to start it again this next trip when I head out to Knoxville on my run next week, because it's just, there is so much coming at you, and you're going to want to go back and hear the story, because seriously, the only thing I wished I had was a map of their Middle Earth, the Middle Earth of the Second Age, so that
Earth.
So that I'm like, okay, this is where they're talking about, and this is where this fight's going on. This is what, because I was lost because I didn't recognize any of the names. Like there's an elf kingdom that I kind of think of as where Legolas's dad. I can't pronounce his name. Thrangle. Anyway, it's the wood elves that are in the Hobbit. It reminds me of that kingdom. The dwarves actually come and help them build the Elven King's halls underground. And the way they're described, you picture it in your head and you're just like, I would love to go there. You know what I mean?
Brian, I mean, look at your tab. Look at your tab down there and add that to the stream. There you go, brother.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Yes.
There's your map.
That's what I need. And I would
of Valinor,
if you're going to do Thranduil, thank you, Fenrir Fire.
Yeah, that's where they go at the end of Lord of the Rings. That's where they are sailing, because that disconnects from Middle Earth. That
Mhm.
disconnects, and Middle Earth becomes round instead of being the flat Earth that you see there.
Yeah, and
So
then
you
because
get a
of
big
man's
map.
contribution, they create the island of Numenor, which
Yep.
that's where all of that's where Aragorn's people are from, the kings. That's oh, what's his dad's name? Isildur. That's where
Isildur.
Isildur was on Numenor.
Yep.
He was
Before it
actually
sank.
he had actually been in Numenor, and then they left but that story in and of itself is worth the Silmarillion. The story of Numenor, to figure out where those people came from, the fall of Numenor, and how it happened. It is seriously, when I was listening to that, I kept thinking this could be the story of modern America. The people were great, did these great things, created this amazing society, and then they became decadent, became jealous of God, became jealous of the elves, became jealous of the Ainur, and their immortal life, and they basically destroy themselves
Yep.
because
It's
of it.
supposed to be Rome.
Yeah, I mean
It's essentially supposed to be the Roman Empire.
it is a fantastic part of that story. It really is. I mean, the whole thing's great, but when they finally got there, I'm like, I know what the hell they're talking about now. So maybe that's why it kind of stuck with me the way it did. Um, was just because I was starting to see and hear characters, um, that I was familiar with from Lord of the Rings. But
And yeah, Purple's right. Throwing money at it
sorry,
doesn't mean it's going to be any damn good.
amen. Yeah, I mean, we like I said, we can hope, but I don't think so. I'm not sure, Xenocide. Are you sure? I'm not sure which. I'm a little late getting back to the chat here. Sorry, guys.
And Pat S., it is kind of like reading an encyclopedia, but it's better because
Yeah,
there's stories. It's like an encyclopedia of stories of Middle Earth. It spans all the ages. And we were talking at the beginning, I don't think Tolkien meant for all those stories to be in the same book, but that's what ended up happening because Chris Tolkien had to finish it.
yeah, yeah. It just because he had been compiling those stories and creating those stories almost his whole life. I mean, he was very smart and into languages and stuff, from the time he was a little kid. Like he learned Latin and Greek and Latin by the time he was like in high school. He knew all the like the old languages. He was just really gifted. That's why, like what Loki was talking about, that's why he created the Elven language. That's why he created the language of Mordor. Because he did that for fun. That's how
Yeah,
smart
yeah,
he was. He did that shit for fun. So,
yeah.
I mean,
You had asked me if there was any part in that stood out. There's another one, the tale of Arwen, who marries Aragorn. Okay, you remember how Elrond in the movies, Elrond shows her what her future is going to be, how she's going to wander the earth, right? After Aragorn dies, she's immortal. She's not going to die. And she's like, "You never told me I was going to have a child. You never said there was going to be a child involved in any of this."
mhm.
Right? Okay. After Aragorn dies, there's a passage about what happens after Aragorn dies. One of the things they never showed in the movies was Galadriel gave Sam a seed of one of the trees. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. She gave Sam a seed of one of the trees. Sam buries that seed in Hobbiton, in the Shire. Okay, and this tree grows. All the trees in oh God, I can't remember the name of the damn Elven city now. All the trees that Galadriel took care of, they all die because she's not giving the trees that special water that's in that basin. That's what keeps them alive because they're so huge. All
Oh,
those trees
the
die.
Malor trees. I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
All those trees die. The only tree that's left in Middle Earth is the seed that Sam plants. After Aragorn dies and Arwen goes to wander Middle Earth, she comes to Hobbiton and that tree is there, and that tree takes her to Valinor. That tree takes her because there's no way to get there anymore. But that tree is directly connected to Galadriel and the elves that went to the Undying Lands. So she's able to go. And she's able to go and be with her father and with Galadriel and with Bilbo and with Frodo and everyone that went to the Undying Land. She basically, that's her like way to heaven. That was her way to Elven heaven because there are no ships that go there. After that last ship sets sail with Bilbo and Frodo, that's it. There are no more ships going to Valinor. She gets there anyway because of that tree.
See, I thought because the elves can choose to die, they actually have that ability.
Yes.
Like they well, I think they have to be half man, like Elrond. Elrond could choose because he's half of each.
He's half elf. Yeah.
And so she would be as well. So I always just assumed that after Aragorn died, she just lived a lot longer, but then still passed away. So yeah, I didn't even know that she was able to do that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. At what point did Xenocide's asking? At what point did Tolkien stop and his son take over? His death
after he died.
After he died,
he worked on that shit till the day he died.
He like there's still. I think there's still. I was looking today, and there's a bunch of extra stories that he did that I don't think have ever even been published yet, or they've been published but in separate works under different names, or like it's under his name, but it's in a different book. Like, so, and it's like a group of stories that, and I'm just like, holy shit, there's a whole bunch of books that I need to go get because there's
that you haven't even checked out yet.
Yeah, there's stuff I haven't even seen yet. So, I mean, that's how prolific of a writer Tolkien was. That's how important this world that he created was that he just kept building and kept, refining and making it better. I mean, he's a creator who never lost the love for his creation. So Tom,
imagine if you and I'm just saying this because we talk about this a lot on the morning show, but imagine this writer today being told we don't want any stories written by a white guy. And what you would lose because of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't it, wasn't there a story just not too long ago that Disney is actually turning down really great scripts?
Yep.
Because they're written by white people and they have white people in them.
Yep.
And I'm just like, and they have legitimately come out and said, these are great scripts. We just don't want them because we're going this way. I'm like,
and it was either them or ABC. It was either Disney or ABC that said, we don't want stories from white Christian trash.
Yeah. You were talking about that just the other morning, weren't you? So
I was.
So that's probably where I heard it. trying to seem smarter than I am just because I'm feeding it Loki's teat. Sorry, that's a terrible way to put that.
Legolas and the Wood Elves. The Wood Elves didn't go to the Undying Lands. The Wood Elves stayed on Middle-earth.
Yeah, there's several groups. Like the elves break down into like 3 different groups. And I'd love to be able to tell you what their names are, but
the elves of Lothlorien, the Wood Elves, the Sindarian elves, which is Legolas, and then the elves of Rivendell.
Well, and that wasn't there a group called the Talari or the Tara? They were the ones that built the ships in Valinor.
Yes.
But like most of them never came to Middle Earth. They always stayed in the Undying Land. So, like I said, there's so many different groups and so many different things. The story of the fall of Gondolin.
Samwise stayed.
Yeah, Samwise stayed. But the fall of Gondolin, that story is crazy good.
Yes.
And how Morgoth actually gets inside to destroy. I mean, it's just, because it was the hidden kingdom. It was the kingdom of the elves that one of the Valinir actually inspired it. Orthon or Orth. He's the Valinir that controls the waters.
Orthnak? Was it Orthnak?
Yeah, Orthnak. I mean, he guides this elf guy to this land, and then basically tells him, "Go create a kingdom here." And so he does. He creates this amazing kingdom of Gondolin, and then and it's just, and then you end up getting to see it destroyed and stuff, and it's just, God, there's so damn many good stories in here.
Yes.
So you could literally sit here and talk 4 hours nonstop just on each one of these stories individually. So I mean, we're coming up on an hour, so I mean, I don't want to hold on to everybody all day. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Loki, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I never get to talk Lord of the Rings, so thank you. No, seriously, I love getting to talk Lord of the Rings.
We need to start doing more of that kind of stuff, because it's just, and that's what I'm doing. I'm switching over to, I mean, I've been a fan of anime for a while, but I mean, I'm going to start really just focusing on the stuff that I love, because they can't take that from me. I'm like, you know what? You can't make me an angry asshole all the time, just some of the time. So, but I mean, Gondolin became Gone with the Wind.
Coming up in June, I'm gonna have a Tuesday show that's gonna be nothing but seasons of Star Trek, going over seasons of Star Trek, and old seasons, not anything new. And that's for the same reason. I want to talk about things I love. Yeah. There is time. It's like Disney. I will not cover Disney shows. I'm gonna bitch about Disney. I guaranteed I'm gonna talk about all the nasty shit they do and call them out for the stuff they do. But I'm not going to cover The Mandalorian. I'm not going to cover any of this because they don't deserve it. They do not deserve my time in that way. I will keep calling them out for all the bullshit they're doing and the ist and phobe crap they're causing, but I won't cover their stuff. I'm going to cover something positive.
Yep.
That's what I'm going to do. And that's Star Trek, Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And focus on sci-fi, focus on the stuff we love. And I'm not going to give them reviews.
No, it's just like letting them live rent free in your head. And no, it's like, nope, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's why, I mean, I didn't watch Winter Soldier. I only watched about half of WandaVision, and I'm just like, I'm done. You guys are not getting anything else from me until you can prove you saw the error of your ways. But yeah, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for being here. Loki, is what's coming up on your channel in the next little while that you want to have people know about?
We are going to do a Monday. What is it going to cover? I know Tuesday I'm going to do. Can't remember what the hell I'm going to cover on Monday. I know Tuesday I'm going to look at Batwoman, and that's going to be stopping soon because I'm tired of covering. I'm tired of covering absolute crap. Yeah. But Monday, I'm trying to remember what the hell I'm going to do Monday.
I think I'm supposed to be on with you. You're doing something. The Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Yeah, we're going to be talking about Mortal Kombat. And as much as I love the fight choreography and the fatalities and all of that, the story in that movie. So, but everything else was great. Everything else was great. Casting was good. I think the story and the writing sucked. But everything else, I think I've seen the fight choreography. I've heard about the story. I'm gonna watch it tomorrow. I'm watching it tomorrow. So if everything is as I've been told it is, fight choreography is great. Fatalities are great. Special effects are great. Story sucked. And why did the story suck? Because they've got to make it about somebody no one has any idea about. You want to make a badass movie? Make it about Hanzo Asashi. That's what I thought. That's what you convinced us you were going to do, was make it about Hanzo Asashi, Scorpion. And you didn't do that. So,
gotta subvert
hey, let's introduce this guy that no one cares about, that no one's ever heard of. And let's make Liu Kang look like a girl. That'll make everybody happy.
I love it.
The bestest Mortal Kombat ever.
But yeah, that's what I got going on. I got that. I got Batwoman coming up on Tuesday. Everything else besides whatever I'm going to do on Friday, which I haven't decided yet. Everything else is up in the air. So believe it or not, there's a lot of times I don't plan my show till like the night before. It'll be like midnight, and I'll be like, what the hell am I going to cover? I've been looking all day. Oh, look, story. And boom, I've got an idea out, and we're getting ready for tomorrow.
Sometimes those are the best ones. Just off. I mean, everything I do
Yes.
is off top of my head. I don't script anything because I want it to feel like a conversation with friends, and I don't
Yes.
script that. So why would I
Yeah,
do that?
When I go onto a panel and there's a list of things to talk about, and it's like, we will cover this A to B to C to D to E, and it's like a bullet point list of shit you have to. I'm like, no,
that's not fun. Let it just go.
Yeah, let it just flow.
So for me, tomorrow I will be doing. I've restarted my live streams on Sunday nights at 7, speaking with the speaker, and we are covering anime. Like I said, because that's what, and I'm doing this with my daughters and my son, so that you get two different perspectives of older versus younger viewers. Tomorrow we are covering Demon Slayer, which I didn't realize the movie was coming out this weekend, but it's coming out this weekend. So, but we're covering the series, and I hopefully will get to see the movie maybe tonight sometime. But that's what we're doing, and then the next week after we'll be doing something else. But yeah, just focus in on what you love. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you guys want to hear on our shows, because that helps us. That helps us to do what you guys are looking for. Because we want to be those entertainers. We want to be the people that are actually listening to our fans instead of crapping on them all the time. So
yeah.
But thanks everybody for being here, and we will talk to you guys next time. Take care.
Thank you, speaker.